The night I brought my 6-week-old daughter home from the hospital after another emergency checkup, my mother stood in my living room holding a suitcase. She didn't ask how the baby was. She pointed to the front door and said, "Your brother's family needs this house more than you do. Pack your things tonight." My newborn started crying as I stared at the woman who had raised me. Then my mother smiled and added, "The house belongs to this family, not you." I looked at the framed deed hanging on the wall, whispered 4 words into the intercom, and everything changed. My name is Claire Morgan. I'm 30 years old, a pediatric nurse in Denver, Colorado, and 3 weeks before this happened, I gave birth to my beautiful daughter, Lily. Becoming a mother should have been the happiest moment of my life. Instead, I was learning how to survive without my husband, Daniel, who had been killed in a highway accident just 4 months before Lily was born. Every day felt like I was carrying 2 kinds of weight, my newborn in my arms and grief in my heart. The one place that still felt safe was the house I'd grown up in. Most people believed it belonged to my parents. That's what Grandpa always let everyone think, because he hated family arguments. After he passed away, I invited my parents to continue living there without paying rent. I never wanted them worrying about money, especially after losing him. My younger brother, Ethan, was a different story. Growing up, Ethan was always the favorite. If he lost a job, Mom blamed his boss. If he wasted money, Dad called it bad luck. Somehow, every mistake became someone else's fault. By 33, he and his wife had bounced through 3 rentals, buried themselves in debt, and still expected someone else to rescue them. That someone was usually me. The afternoon everything changed. I had just finished Lily's pediatric appointment. She was asleep in her carrier as I unlocked the front door. Before I could step inside, I froze. Moving boxes filled the hallway. Children's toys were stacked beside the staircase. Ethan was carrying a television toward what had always been my living room. His wife was directing movers as if she'd lived there for years. Then my mother walked over with a smile that didn't reach her eyes.
"There you are," she said.
Perfect timing. I looked around, completely confused. What's going on? Mom folded her arms like she'd already settled the matter. Ethan and his family are moving in. They need this house more than you do. I laughed once, thinking she had to be joking. She wasn't. I have a newborn, I whispered. And they have 2 children, she replied without hesitation. You'll manage. You're strong. I stared at my brother. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. Then Mom delivered the sentence that made the entire room go silent. You need to pack your things and leave tonight. This house belongs to this family, not to you anymore. I looked toward Grandpa's old study. The folder where I'd last seen one important document was missing. For the first time that afternoon, I realized they truly believed the house was theirs. Nobody tried to stop me as I carried Lily back to my car. Mom stood on the porch with her arms crossed, watching like she'd just solved a family problem. Ethan was already telling the movers where to place furniture, and his wife was measuring windows for new curtains. They weren't acting like guests. They were acting like owners. I buckled Lily into her car seat, climbed behind the wheel, and drove away without saying another word. In my rearview mirror, I saw Ethan close my front door. He actually smiled. I didn't drive toward a hotel. I drove downtown to the law office that had handled Grandpa's estate. Martin Hayes had been Grandpa's attorney for nearly 25 years. The moment he saw my face, he stood up. "Claire," he said gently. "What happened?" I told him everything. Every word my mother had said. Every box I'd seen inside the house. The moment they ordered me and my newborn to leave. He listened without interrupting once. When I finished, he quietly opened a locked filing cabinet and removed a thick folder. "I hoped this day would never come," he said. He placed a certified copy of the county property records in front of me. My name sat alone under the ownership section. Claire Elizabeth Morgan, sole owner. I stared at the page. I knew Grandpa had signed something years ago, I whispered. But he never explained everything. Martin nodded. He didn't want your parents treating you differently. Years before he passed away, he legally transferred the property to you through a recorded warranty deed. I felt my throat tighten. My parents. They were granted permission to live there if you allowed it, he explained. Nothing more. They never owned this house. They couldn't give it away, and they certainly couldn't remove you from it. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Martin slid another document across the desk. "These are certified copies," he said. "We'll serve formal notices today." I nodded once. "Do it." Within the hour, legal notices were prepared, ownership records verified, and emergency authorization requests submitted. That evening, while feeding Lily at the temporary apartment Martin had helped me arrange, my phone buzzed. A motion alert from my home's security cameras. I opened the live feed. Ethan was standing at my front door, watching a locksmith remove every lock in a house that legally belonged to me. I barely slept that night. Every time Lily stirred beside me, I checked the security cameras again. By sunrise, Ethan's SUV was parked in my driveway, bicycles leaned against my garage, and my mother's flower pots had been rearranged across the front porch as though they were celebrating a fresh start. They had no idea what was coming. At exactly 8:30 that morning, the doorbell rang. A county process server stood outside holding a thick envelope. I watched everything through my phone. Mom opened the door with an impatient expression. "Mrs. Morgan?" "Yes." "You've been served." He handed her the documents, wished her a good day, and walked back to his car. She barely glanced at the papers before tossing them onto the hallway table. Ethan picked them up, laughed, and shrugged. "Claire's trying to scare us," he said. "She'll get over it." My mother smiled. "I told you she'd never fight her own family." Less than 20 minutes later, another vehicle pulled into the driveway. This time, it wasn't a delivery van. It was a county sheriff's SUV. The laughter inside stopped almost instantly. The sheriff stepped onto the porch, carrying a clipboard and several certified property records. "Good morning," he said calmly. "I'm here regarding the occupancy of this residence." Mom crossed her arms. "There's been a misunderstanding. This is our family home." The sheriff looked down at the paperwork before meeting her eyes again. According to county records, the sole legal owner is Claire Elizabeth Morgan. Silence. Ethan stepped forward. "That can't be right." The sheriff handed him a certified copy. "It has been right for several years." I watched Ethan's confidence disappear as he read my name printed across the deed. "But," Mom said, "the previous occupants were granted permission to reside here," the sheriff explained evenly. "Permission is not ownership. That permission has now been revoked." Just then, 2 licensed locksmiths arrived. The sheriff nodded toward the front door. "They're here under the owner's authorization." No one argued anymore. No one could. Standing across the street, hidden inside my parked car with Lily asleep in her carrier, I opened the home's smart intercom on my phone. My mother looked around, searching for me. Her voice trembled. "Claire, please." I pressed the microphone. Then I quietly said the only 4 words Grandpa had prepared me to say. "Read Grandpa's final letter." The sheriff waited while Martin Hayes walked up the driveway carrying a sealed envelope. I recognized Grandpa's handwriting immediately. Across the front was written, "To be opened only if Claire is ever forced to defend this home." Martin carefully broke the seal and unfolded the letter. Nobody spoke. Even Ethan stared at the page, without saying a word. Martin began reading aloud. "If you're hearing this letter, then the day I feared has finally arrived." My mother's eyes widened. "This home belongs to Claire because she earned it long before my signature ever made it official." I felt Lily sleeping peacefully against my shoulder. She was the one who stayed when I was sick. She balanced hospital shifts, brought groceries, paid bills I never asked her to pay, and never once expected praise. Mom lowered her head. Grandpa's words continued. "A house should never be inherited by the loudest voice. It belongs to the person who protects the family instead of demanding the family protect them." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. His wife quietly looked away. Martin continued reading. "I allowed everyone to believe this house belonged to me because I wanted to see character reveal itself naturally. Ownership tests people. Entitlement exposes them." The driveway fell completely silent. Then came Grandpa's final paragraph. "Claire, if someone ever tells you to surrender this home simply to keep the peace, remember this. Peace built on injustice never lasts. Protect your child. Protect yourself." Never apologize for defending what you earned honestly. Martin folded the letter. No one moved. My mother covered her face and began crying. They're right, she whispered through trembling breaths. Your grandfather knew exactly what I was going to do, and he still trusted you instead of me. I looked at my sleeping daughter. Then I made one final decision. Not out of anger, but out of responsibility. I could have demanded that everyone leave that afternoon. Legally, I had every right. Instead, I asked Martin to give my parents 30 days to find another place to live. Ethan and his family were instructed to leave immediately, but I refused to answer cruelty with more cruelty. Lily deserved a mother who made decisions with a clear heart, not an angry one. A month later, the house finally felt like home again. I painted Lily's nursery the soft sage green Daniel had picked before he died. Grandpa's old reading chair stayed beside the window, exactly where he'd spent countless evenings telling me that a real home was built with love, not ownership papers. A few months later, Mom asked if we could meet for coffee. She apologized through tears, admitting she'd spent years confusing favoritism with love. She said she'd expected me to give in because I always had before. I accepted her apology, but I didn't hand back the keys to my boundaries. Some lessons cost too much to forget. Today, when I rock Lily to sleep beneath the same roof Grandpa protected for us, I understand what my true inheritance was. It wasn't the deed. It was the courage to protect my daughter, honor my grandfather's faith in me, and never again mistake kindness for surrender.